Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. As you've said, I should have contributed the first day, but sometimes because of the demand, it becomes impossible. But let me contribute actually to the President's address. And I start from actually saying that this is my first time to be in opposition. And sometimes it is very good to be in opposition because I've been on the other side of the aisle. And you end up defending Undefendable. Yeah? But being on opposition is the best thing actually that I'm enjoying this time round to serve in this House. Mr. Speaker, looking at the presidential address, we are being told that Kenya has matured democratically. I doubt that. Because Kenyan politics are based on tribal, clan, ethnicity, money, the rich and the poor. So we are far from being democratic. The only time that I'll say that we are happy and we have matured democratically, Mr. Speaker, is when we don't have contestation. Because over the years, we've had contestation in our elections. We've seen what happened. But I must congratulate Kenyans for having been peaceful this time round when we had election. As the saying goes, minority have their say, and majority have their way. But one day we will realize that the minority will also have their way. Mr. Speaker, from the presidential address, I will look at the issues of the ministers appearing before the House. And some of the people are saying it has been difficult to get the ministers. And I don't want to be the prophet of doom. Whether we have ministers in the House or not, the music will be the same. Because I remember in the last two parliaments, we've had ministers appearing before the committee of the whole. They have never been sitting in the House. But we had even summons to summon ministers who actually defied the summon of the House. And I hope in the process of actually introducing ministers appearing before the Senate to answer questions, we will not be sent cast to come and answer questions on behalf of the ministers. That will be disastrous for this country. Mr. Speaker, the ministers are not members of this House. The only time maybe if they will appear without this mess being here. Yeah? So, we want to see how Kenya Kwanza are going to introduce ministers sitting in this House and answering questions. That is the day we'll have a big challenge in this country. Number two is the issues of Hustler Fund. Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chelagei, what is out of order and Senator Fatuma is doing so well? Go to the dispatch box.
Mr. Speaker, I had to interrupt my leader because and my former member in my jailer committee, but him being a senior lawyer, I expected her to provide proper guidance, because we might end up misleading. I raise only look at Article 153 of the Constitution, sub-Article 3. It talks about a cabinet secretary attending a committee of the National Assembly or the Senate when required by the committee and answer any question concerning a matter for which the cabinet secretary is responsible. But the Senator Dullo making assertion that Chief Administrative Secretary will appear before the committees is not good. It's misleading the country, and I hope her being a leader in this house should not be the one misleading. Yet the Constitution is crystal clear under Article 153, sub-Article 3, on who should appear before any committee, so that we don't get mixed up. The President suggested, and the standing orders will be looked at, but that one does not mean that the Chief Administrative Secretaries or even, and I remember, Mr. Speaker, in the hindsight of institutional memory, we were together with on several occasions where we turned away Chief Administrative Secretaries. I remember you used to serve in national security, and I hope you'll continue serving in it. And you remember we returned the current governor of Narok, Governor Tutu, when he was the Chief Administrative Secretary of Interior. So please, Mr. Speaker, let the leader guide the nation appropriately, not mislead the nation.
Yes, Senator Maruma, what is out of order again?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not about Senator Fatuma Dullo's contribution, but I'm trying to see how we are doing for time. It's almost 5:15, and there are several people who are supposed to contribute. I'm wondering if we continue with this pace of 15 minutes, I will only get 6 people to contribute, and we could be having more contributors who want to contribute to the presidential speech. So I want to move that we reduce the time. We might reduce the time. Number 2, maybe you within standing order number 1, Speaker, we can see how, Speaker, we can disallow points of order because they are eating into our time. Yet there are people who have already contributed, and if we continue allowing these points of order, then we might not get time to really contribute. I seek your indulgence, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwaluma, you know this motion is in progress, almost we are at the tail end, and it is not possible to limit the debate at this point, according to standing order 111. But I've been actually requesting members, at your own discretion, senators, you can save some time for your colleagues, because can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I'm unable to help at this juncture. I know the interest with all the members. I have very long list from both sides, but I'm unable to help at this juncture. Senator Fatuma Adan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I'll be very fast and brief in my contribution. I've heard Senator Cherargei about CAS. And actually, it's good that he has confirmed we have turned away CAS in our previous meetings. And I've said actually in my statement, there is a possibility of actually sending CAS to this House. And that is what we are going to disallow. So I don't see if there is anything that is out of order. And number 2, when he quotes Article 153, it's very clear that the cabinet ministers are going to appear before the committee of the whole or committee of different departments. That is okay. We have no problem with that. But the only time that we are going to challenge is when we have those ministers to come and sit with us in this House. And that is very clear from my side. The other point I wanted to raise, Senator Cherargei, you are eating into my time, which I think the Speaker needs to protect me. the issues of PPP. Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues have said, there was no mention of issues of corruption in the address of the president. What killed this country is corruption. And I know very well, for the last 2 terms I've been in this House, counties have been grappling with the issues of PPP. And a very good example, even national governments, the issues of mess. They first started with PPP. And when they realized PPP is not going to work, they dropped it and went to contract, an agreement. PPP, if we are not carefully going to see how we can handle or come up with a proper strategy, that is a source of corruption. And I hope Kenyans are fully aware of what is happening and what will happen to PPP if we don't have proper structures in place. And number 2, counties, they don't even have capacity to run PPP. But unfortunately, most of them, they end up actually starting PPP. Along the way, they drop. So PPP, if we are not very careful, Kenyans are not going to get value for their money. And also, it's a source of corruption. If Kenya Kwanza is ready to deal with corruption, we have no problem with the PPP. And I don't know where they are going to get money to run PPP when they are crying there is no money in the country. Mr. Speaker, the other point I wanted to raise is on a hustler fund. After election, every leader comes on board, they introduce a fund. We have youth fund, which we have seen actually as it has not benefited Kenyan youths. It's actually failing today, if I'm not wrong.